So let's go ahead and get started. First question goes to Ashley Young of NBC.
Hey, Coach Graves. You returned just one starter this upcoming season, Erin Boley. What changes has she made this offseason, and what do you expect from her this upcoming season?
You know, Erin's a really smart player. She filled a role for us in the past couple of years that we really needed filled. But she's capable of doing more, and she's showing that so far this fall. I've been really impressed with her ability to score, not just from the three-point line, but she's being a lot more aggressive to the basket. We posted her a little bit. She's coming off more ball screens. So, you know, she now knows that we need her to do more. And like I said, she's a smart player, and so she's doing it.
Next question.
She's been a great leader, Ashley, for us so far this fall. I've really appreciated that about her.
Okay, next question goes to Howard.
Kelly, good afternoon. Good to chat with you.
Mr. Analytics.
Well, actually, my question does tend toward those lines, which is that, you know, historically over the last couple of years, you guys have had the best offensive efficiency in the country. And, you know, there's certainly been a look for ways in which you can become more efficient. This year, though, is such a different thing in just about every way you can come up with. I'm just wondering how you're processing thinking of it. Are you looking year over year? Are you looking at your team relative to other teams once the season starts? How are you measuring, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, how are you measuring progress and success this year?
Well, Howard, you and my oldest son, Max, have helped me buy into the analytics. I'm not completely about the analytics and how we go about what we do, but it is important. You know, I listen, we can't compare this team to any of our past teams, right? You know, maybe Sabrina's group 4 years ago, because we're built different. I think we're better in some ways and we're not as good in some ways. I think, number one, our experience, we just don't have as much as we've had in the past. I will say this, though, we have better shooters. This is our best shooting team. As dominant as Ruthie was at the low post, we now have added a equally as dominant player in the low post who also has the ability to step out and do some things. So we're trying to play through her a little bit more. In the past, we played through Sabrina and Satu. And now we might play through our inside people. So, you know, so I don't really compare to what we've done in the past. This is a new team, and we're going to make the most. I think we'll run a lot more sets to get open threes, you know, to be honest with you. So, but the basic structure of what we do on a daily basis and the offense that we run is going to be the same for the most part. And then when you said compare to others, you talking about other teams nationally or to ourselves?
Both, really. I'm wondering how you measure what progress looks like in a year that's obviously going to have fundamentally different benchmarks. You know, by definition. Yeah.
Howard, to answer it truthfully, I don't know. I have no idea because who knows? You know, some games we might end up with 7 players, 8 players. Some games we'll have a full group. You know, we have so many that have not separated from each other yet. We could go with a really deep bench. So, you know, I think I'm going to measure by the end of the year our total success and then how we do in postseason. That, to be honest with you.
Appreciate it, Kelly.
Go Brooklyn. I got let's go. I'm a Dodger guy.
Next question, Graham Hayes, ESPN.
Hey, Kelly. Thanks for doing this. Just curious, with the NCAA extending eligibility for winter sports athletes last week or whenever that was, what does that mean for somebody running a program? How do you start even thinking about what that means and how to plan for it down the road?
You know, I don't know how it's going to play out. It's something that we've never had happen. So I truthfully think that it won't affect us a ton. You know, I have 2 fifth-year seniors, both of whom are going to have professional opportunities at the end of this year. Perhaps basketball-wise, but they've both set themselves up academically to kind of get into the fields of their choice. But I think both want to play professional basketball. So I don't think they're going to take the 6th-year option. I was kidding Sedona and Niara, both of whom could be 7th-year seniors at some point. That's not going to happen. So, and most of our other players, I think, those that have pro aspirations will get their degree and move on. If they decide they want to play a fifth year somewhere, I understand that maybe the graduate assistant, or not a graduate transfer option is not available to those players, correct? I think I heard that way. So honestly, Graham, I don't know, buddy. By the way, I love the look. I mean, let's go. I love the whole facial thing there. But
Long quarantine.
what's that, Graham?
It's been a long quarantine.
It has. I was going to say, if you were a runner, you'd look like Forrest Gump out there. Dude, I love it. But anyway, yeah, you guys, I don't know. I don't know how it will play out. I don't think it's going to affect recruiting much because I don't see everybody opting in for the fifth year thing.
Eric Opel, 24/7.
Hey, Coach, I'm going to pull the anti-Allen Iverson. I want to talk about practice. Excitement level just to get going. And then you guys have had a week now. I know you were working out before that, but a week of actual practice, maybe some takeaways and some things you've learned.
Well, it's been a little roller coaster ride in terms of execution, as it should be, or as is expected with 9 new players and 7 freshmen. Everybody's just trying to figure each other out. Some days we look like world beaters, and then the next day we don't look so good. Each one of our freshmen have made an impact, have looked great one day and maybe not so good the next. So I think that's just what you have, with this group. And I just hope that we continue to, work hard and buy in, and the more we get comfortable with each other and the more the roles start to develop, I think it'll be a lot better for us. So that's why I think, it might look rough early, and especially since we're only going to have 2 or 3 non-league games before we jump right into the toughest conference in the country. So who knows what it'll look like early, but I think by the end we're going to be a tough out for people. But I love the energy. I love the enthusiasm. I love the fact that our players have not complained about wearing masks, and we have continued to wear masks the entire practice, even during scrimmage. And that's not easy, going up and down the floor with masks. But, they've just kind of accepted the fact this is what we're going to have to do until our local health officials tell us we can do otherwise. And, and I appreciate that about them. We've tried to make it our practices a little bit more fun. Okay. And, to keep that energy level up, because there's so much negative coming at these young people right now. And we want them to enjoy coming to practice, even though we're working hard and we're getting things done. It's been a little different than it has been in the past. And we're going a little longer than we have in the past. Ruthie and Sabrina and those guys, they didn't need to work on another pick and roll. We could get in, do our business, get out. And here we're doing spending a lot more time teaching. So good question, but I love what I see so far. I do.
James Crepia, Oregonian.
Kelly, your reaction to, you got what you wanted. You got the double round robin to 22. To that, there was actually a move that made sense from this conference, perished the thought. And you mentioned 2 or 3 non-conference. I thought it was 27 for both men's and women's, though. So are you guys 25 for? So you're just doing the Portland State, Seattle U. That's going to be it. That's
what it looks like. I can't announce that until I get the contracts back, but I think we're going to stay local. We could have gone to an MTE. Some of the MTEs, there's been some questions about testing protocols, et cetera. So we just decided to stay local.
With that, then how? Everybody's going to run into this. If everything's more regionalized, as good as the league is, and it's been proven, how does this play into seeding? How do you think this is going to make this season look nationally? Because how does anyone really know anything? No one's playing. If no one plays, if it's all really small schools against the power schools, who's to say who, the 5th best team in some league when there's not interleague games with the power leagues?
Having talked to people on the women's basketball committee, I think they're putting more of an emphasis this year on the eye test. I think that's, and even those conferences that need a lot more games, they're struggling to find them. You know what I mean? So there's some conference, the West Coast Conference, they need 7 non-league games because they have an 18-team or 18 game schedule. They have 2 games scheduled right now in the non-league. So people aren't traveling, you know, so I don't think you're going to see a ton of those marquee matchups. You know, I think there will be some, and let's face it, we're at a disadvantage out West. We just don't have as many schools within driving distance, you know, that's just our reality. So teams that would have to come here, or if we went there, you'd fly. We don't want to fly any more than we have to. So listen, there is no norm this year, buddy. I think we have to live a little bit on our reputation as the best conference going. And who knows, maybe in the end that might help us. Maybe that gets us an extra team in. You know, we'll see. I don't know if we can tell whether it's going to be a help or a hindrance right now. Good question.
Ryan Thorburn, Register Guard.
Kelly, you touched on the new normal a little bit, but what's like a typical day like for you and your players? Like what time do you go in and get tested and get the results and practice and all that? And are you and your staff and the players kind of used to it by now? Is it part of the deal?
Yeah, there's regular testing in the mornings, and then before practice, the results are coming back quick. Staff gets tested as well, not every day. It tingles, buddy. It tingles. But, again, it's part of what we have to do. And I think our players have done a great job in kind of staying diligent, doing the right thing. But then we have practice late morning, early afternoon. Like I said, the practices have been great. I think the toughest part for them is just the fact that they're not going to classes. You know, they come to practice and then they go home and look at their computer, right? And they're on Zoom classes. That cannot be easy for them. So we're trying to be we're trying to recognize that mental health becomes maybe an issue with our players, and we're doing whatever we can and lots of different things that we wouldn't normally do to kind of keep the enthusiasm up, their focus, and things like that. But our day is, as a coaching staff, is roughly the same as it's always been. But the players are the ones that are, experiencing something different.
All right, next question goes to Carly at the Daily Emerald.
Hi, Coach. Kind of going back to practices, what were your expectations for players coming into starting practice regarding being in shape and in basketball shape?
It's funny you mentioned that. I just talked with we scrimmaged a little bit more yesterday, and we had today off, but yesterday, and I was commenting to our strength coach that I think we're in great shape. We look like we're actually getting close to game shape right now, and I credit our players. They've worked hard. During conditioning and in the weight room, and when we play hard. So I think that's helped them. I've actually been impressed. I think we're as good, if not better, than we usually are at this point. So kudos to a really, kind of focused and dedicated team.
Sue Favor, Women's Hoops World.
Hey, hi, Kelly. Good to see you.
You too, Sue.
Maybe a quick two-part question. Just one, you had just mentioned about a lot of negative was coming at them, and maybe you could elaborate on that, because then you did touch on the mental health piece. But also, my second part would be, who are the upper class leaders that are kind of stepping up to help the new ones? And then are there any of the newer players that are making a big impression for you and your coaches right now?
Well, when I say negative, it's since things aren't normal, there's a tendency to sometimes look at the bad side of things. Well, I can't do this and I can't do that. I mean, we can't even go out and have a team meal together.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. That's a chance where you really have to bond and, build team chemistry and things like that. Not on the court, but off the court, which is every bit as important. And so they're basically stuck with their little cohort, and, they're not able to kind of just get out and really enjoy the entire college experience, which is what this is about. So it's different. And then with things that are going on socially, across the country, and now with the negative on both sides with the election and and just the question marks of whether we're even going to get a season. You know, that's still up in the air. That's not for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why it's a difficult time for them. So yes, we have focused on mental health. We talk about different issues each and every day, you know, to just kind of help ourselves through. As far as who's been impressive so far, you know, in our leadership, I think we have great leadership. Taylor Chavez has all the intangibles that Sabrina brought to us. I think, you know, she's been great on the court as well. In terms of statistically, I think Erin Boley and Lydia Giomi are two of your best leaders you're ever going to see. Number one, they're really nice people. They have the team's best interests at heart. They're kind of mother hens in a way. They keep us organized. They keep everybody enthusiastic. They make sure everybody's involved off the court when we do things, you know, via Zoom or whatever. And then Jazz Shelley, you know, I think she's really stepped up. And then in terms of our freshmen, you know, they all come in as state champions. So they've all had experience winning. They know what it takes. And so they've, you know, I think they're spending a lot of time together. And I've already seen some leadership emerge within that group. And so I'm happy in that regard. You know, we've got issues like everybody, but I think our head spaces are pretty good right now. We're where we should be.
That sounds awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
Next question, Hayden Herrera.
Hey, Coach, you just mentioned those freshmen. So whenever, you know, Sabrina and Ruthie's class came in all those years ago, do you feel like the way you handle those freshmen is different than the way you handled this year's class of freshmen? And if so, how?
I try to stay consistent every year in how I kind of work with the team. I think that's important in a coach and a coaching staff, you know, to be consistent from team to team and year to year. But, you know, you coach a little bit differently because of different skill sets and experience, et cetera, et cetera. I've looked back. I think we talked about this maybe last time, but I look back, I keep all my practice plans. And so from that 2016-17 season, I'm actually looking back, what were we working on the 8th practice of the year? And we've kept it fairly consistent with that. And so we're, you know, making progress. But, you know, I think the key to coaching, Hayden, is, you know, you treat every player different. And I think a lot of coaches, the old adage is, no, you got to treat every player the same. No, you don't. You can't, because every player is different. You can hold them each to the same standard of excellence, but you've got to, that's the key to coaching. Determine, you know, what works with this player, what works with that player. I used to get mad at, I won't mention a name, but I'd yell at Sabrina so that, you know, so-and-so would get the message. I was really yelling at the other one, but I would do it through Sabrina because I knew she could handle it, you know. You know, so we're still trying to figure that out. But, yeah. I don't know if that answers it, Aiden.
No, it does. It does. Thank you.
All right, buddy. I'm going to miss seeing you at my haunted house.
I know. Can I just drive by your house and you scare me through my car window or something like that?
Well, usually just looking at people, I can scare them. Yes.
Kelly, you better put it on some social media so we can all enjoy it.
All right, next question, Paul Danzer, Portland Tribune.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Kelly. Thanks for doing this.
You got it, Paul.
I was curious about integrating the freshmen, just the process in this weird time of getting them to campus and getting them comfortable with your routines. What are some of the maybe unique challenges of that been, and how have you approached that?
Well, I think communication has been the biggest struggle, and thank God I have a great staff. They've done an awesome job of communicating not only with our incoming freshmen, you know, throughout this whole enrollment process, getting on campus, onboarding, but they also kept the parents in the loop as much as they can. You know, parents have a lot of questions. And in our case, we have freshmen from New Jersey and Chicago and Kentucky, and, you know, we have players from all over the world. And so parents are concerned that we're taking, you know, that their young daughters are being taken care of. And so thank goodness, especially Jody Berry, she's done just such an amazing job. But the communication component, Paul, has been the toughest. because we can't meet as a group. Now we can, but we still have to social distance. But early on, everything had to be done through Zoom. So the personal face-to-face contact it wasn't there. And so what happens is there's misunderstandings and things like that. So, but I credit both our players and my staff. I just thought they did a terrific job in getting this all together. And now that they're here, I see them really buying in. And again, that communication's been a lot better.
You mentioned fun practices. What's an example of how you've tried to make practices fun, maybe that you haven't done in the past?
Well, sometimes early on you do some drills that may not be all that much fun. So we've made most of everything that we do competitive. And the one thing that my team and one thing that we recruit are competitors. And so they like to compete. So even if it's just a shooting drill, we're making it a competitive situation. And so when I make it fun, that's what I mean. A lot of juice. We've got our managers and the players on the sidelines. Everybody is trying to just get more juiced. You know, if you ever went to a Mario Cristobal practice, you know what I'm talking about. That's juice. That's bringing it. That's, you know, having fun with what you're doing. And that's what we're trying to do right now. You got to manufacture it sometimes.
Thanks, Kelly.
Okay.
All right, let's go back to Howard.
Oh, yeah. I want to run a quote by you that Jay Wright said to us recently, and just curious how it relates to your experience over the last few weeks. Honest to God, I just worry about the tests. It's the most important thing. I really don't even worry about anything basketball-wise. I'm always just grateful of every day we get together. I'm taking a totally different approach. Obviously, there's some continuity, but I just wonder to what extent that type of emotional connection, when, like you said, it's a time where you can't even take your team out to dinner, how you're approaching that and what that's been like for you.
Well, I've seen it in other programs. In fact, one of my good friends, it's happened. One of the coaching staff and one of the players tested positive. They shut the entire team down for 2 weeks. So we're 1 or 2 tests away from having that happen at any point, any day. And, you know, and it's, you try to do the right thing and be as vigilant as possible. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, you know, and that's why the question mark. So I can see what he means. It's hard to really focus on, hey, you know, this is what we want to get accomplished this week. Well, guess what? If you have a couple positive tests, you're going to have 4 players at practice. You're not going to get anything done. So it's hard to just focus on the basketball. I mean, we're a month and a half away from our first Pac-12 game. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and that's if everything goes well. We're so far from being ready that it's hard to even look at it in that term. Like, hey, let's get ourselves ready. We got to have the zone defense in this week, our press offense in next week, and on and on. Hey, let's just get through today and improve in what we can. So Jay Wright is phenomenal. He's about as good as there is in the business, and he's going to say it a lot more eloquently than I can, but I agree with him.
And just the flip side of it, are you finding other ways to connect? You know, how do you find ways to connect with your team at this point?
Yeah, we're doing a lot more of the feel good stuff off the court than we would normally do. You know, I'm more about just ball. You know, let's just go out and play and do our jobs. And I think this year, more than ever, we've really tried to engage as much as we can with them in smaller groups, maybe watch more film than we normally would in small groups, socially distant, and just kind of go that way. You know, we've got some good team bonding things that we've done that I wouldn't normally do. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm positive, but I don't need the fluff in our program. And we're giving them a little fluff this year.
Thanks, Joe. Good luck to you, Dodgers.
All right. Thanks, Howard.
Eric Scopel.
Hey, Coach. You mentioned last time we spoke that you were going to have all the players write the expected number of minutes down on a piece of paper. Did you do that? And is that a reflection of why you said you guys might have a lot of depth? You might have to play a lot of bodies?
Yeah, we have not done that yet. So don't leak that out anywhere. We will do it at some point, but no, I think we're doing things like having we're meditating, we're doing meditation, we're writing in journals, we're doing those kind of things that I think are really helping them deal with what's going on. And I think that's been important, but yes, that's definitely something we're going to do here soon.
And then just a real quick follow-up on the depth comment you made earlier. Does that allow you to do more things maybe in terms of be a little bit more versatile, maybe press, be a little bit more aggressive defensively?
Yes. And, well, I don't know how much. Yeah, we'll see. We haven't put any, meaningful pressure defense in yet. We're just trying to teach them where they should be when the ball's here and there, one pass away, the real basics. But the question earlier about our conditioning, I think the depth will help us early on until we can really get in great team shape, game shape, because we can play a number of players. And right now we haven't separated. But give it some time. We will.
All right, we'll do two more. Let's go back to James Crapia.
Kelly, to another testing-related question. What's your understanding in terms of the Pac-12's protocols at the moment, or what they're discussing for being able to test out of a false positive? It came up obviously last week in a huge scale with Nick Saban. He had 5 tests in 3 days subsequently, and has a private plane fly his test the day of because their lab is hundreds of miles away. But football is bad enough. It's a short sample. If they miss a game, they're hosed. You guys shutting down for 2 weeks, that could take 4 or 6 games out, and God knows how many practices. So what's the ability after an antigen? Because the county says if you get a negative PCR, but after a positive antigen, you're net negative in the view of the county and the state. But the state of Oregon doesn't run the Pac-12. So what's your understanding is where things stand and the ability to resume operations after a potentially false positive?
And we discussed that last week in our meeting with Pac-12 coaches, the women's basketball coaches. And I think the answer was, we don't know yet. They haven't decided. I don't think Oregon's going to be flying my tests on a private plane somewhere, so I won't have to worry about that. But I think it'll be figured out here at some point. And we have a meeting again tomorrow, and I know that that's on the discussion list, so we might have a better answer. That's best I can tell you, big guy, on the testing.
And just to follow that slightly, I figured it was undecided, but how much of a concern is that, Kelly? Just whether it's the contact tracing and wipes out, again, you hear horror stories in football. I realize they have more players, but in your case, it could be the whole roster, and it may not even be justified in the sense of they didn't do anything wrong. And you talk about the negative and players hearing this stuff. They could be shut down and they didn't even do anything and they didn't even test positive. Like, how do you actually balance this on the human level here?
Yeah, that's what makes the whole thing so difficult, James. It truly does. I mean, and I wish I had a better answer for you. Obviously my first responsibility is to the health and safety of our players. And I truly do believe that. I do. And if it means we have to miss a couple games, if God forbid something like that happens, you know what, then so be it. So be it. But I hope at some point we'll have some answers. I think that's something that people know is an issue, and they're going to try and work through that. But again, it's always going to come, at least from my perspective, to the health and safety of the student athlete. And I'm a dad. Listen, I'm coming at it a little differently, and I'm an established coach. I've been around, whether I need to pad my record with more wins and, we can't lose these games because ... I'm not into that. I want to make sure that our kids are safe, they're healthy, they're having a good experience here best they can. And so I'm going to, listen, I will always side with the local health officials, our state health officials. That's just who I am personally. So I can't speak to the other coaches. But, I wish I had a different answer for you, buddy. I'm all for an expedient resolve, too. I mean, I won't lie to you. You know what I mean? Yeah, I want what's best for them. But at the same time, if we're able to do that and it's allowed to then test out of it, so to speak, okay, I'm for that. But not at the risk of, doing the right thing. Thank you, James.
All right, last question, Hayden Herrera.
Coach, a big part of this this program is your fan base. Mark Campbell tweeted out the how it started, how it's going, and when you guys play the next time, it's going to look like how it started. Have you kind of mentally prepared for that? And what has this over these last whatever months, the the tweets, the messages you've gotten from the fan base? What has that meant to you, and has anyone just stood out in particular?
Yeah, I'm really disappointed. We've built such a special thing. I hope that it'll be able to continue once we do get fans back. That we've built so much momentum, and it's become a happening here. I hope we don't lose that. But yeah, the worst part of it is I have a booming voice, and it gets drowned out sometimes by the fans in our arena. But now that there are no fans, I may get more technicals than I normally do. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, I don't know. It's a disappointment for all our fans, not just ours here at home, but the ones on the road that love to come support the Ducks, as well as all the other teams. It's just a shame that we're not going to be able to have that same kind of support. Hopefully, Hayden, hopefully this thing, does turn and we get better and we start doing the right things, get the numbers down, and maybe in the second half of conference play, maybe we're able to at least allow a few fans. I don't know. I don't know what that's gonna, where we're at on that. But yeah, I know they support us, and they email me all the time with different solutions, like putting the game on the scoreboard at the new track facility and let people kind of sit around and watch our games. And listen, they're gonna have to watch safely. We don't want people getting in big groups, sitting around a home and watching our football team or our basketball teams or other sports, because that's the worst thing they can do.
All right, we'll end it there. KG, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, great to see everybody. Stay well, okay?
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks.